What is a fire code? Well, a fire code is a general fire safety standard that can be in effect at residential buildings, commercial buildings. Today, we're going to talk mainly about the commercial side. There are certainly a lot of residential fire codes and, that apply to homes and apartment buildings and condos and fun things like that. Because we're mainly looking at hazardous materials, specifically lithium batteries, we're going to focus a little bit more on the commercial side of the fire codes. So what are fire codes, specifically the international fire codes? The best thing to understand about international fire codes is that they are not exactly regulations. So I always use my experience with the Department of Transportation. So I come from the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration. That is the agency under the DOT umbrella that writes all the rules and regulations for transporting hazardous materials, including lithium batteries, to, from, and within the United States. Those are regulations. So if I want to ship a lithium battery from point A to point B, I need to make sure it's in a package that is authorized by DOT. I need to make sure that there's an exact label on there. In some cases, I need to fill out a regulated shipping paper in the exact required manner, spelling every word right, getting every sequence in order. Those are regulations that are mandatory, and not only are they mandatory, but they are a federalized system. So the regulations on how I package, mark, label, and document a lithium battery shipment are the same here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, as they are down in Dallas, as they'll be in Denver, as they'll be down in Miami. It's a federal system. So in some respects, that makes the transport regulations, I'm not going to say easy because they are complicated, but it does make them sort of straightforward in the sense that you know what applies. It's a prescriptive set of regulations that says I exactly have to meet these standards in order to ship my lithium battery. The International Fire Code is not a law, it's not necessarily mandatory, and it is not a federal regulation in the same way that Department of Transportation regulations are. So these are a series of standards and best practices developed by fire chiefs around the country, by warehousing companies, by emergency responders, by insurance companies, by package manufacturers. There's really a lot of stakeholders that get together to kind of decide on what is safe storage of hazardous materials, in addition to things that are just generally flammable. Every 3 years, you're going to see a new international fire code published. So the last official publication of the fire code, IFC, was back in 2024. We're going to get a new publication in 2027. And as you probably imagine, every 3-year cycle, there's a lot that goes into it in terms of developing new proposals and tweaking requirements for storage of really anything flammable. So the way that it works in practice is just because there is a 2024 fire code that exists, that doesn't necessarily mean it's in effect wherever you are located. So instead of a federal system, what ends up happening is it's either at the state level, the county level, sometimes the city or village level, that in their own municipal laws and practices that they will adopt whatever current version of the International Fire Code. So what you'll notice is kind of a patchwork system. So you'll have some states and cities around the country that have already adopted the 2024 Fire Code. So we're sitting here in March of 2026. There have been, certainly not the majority, but there have been a lot of states and cities around the country that have adopted the 2024 code. Now, with that said, the majority are still using older codes, such as the 2021 International Fire Code. Some that I've seen, on their municipal laws still show the 2018 Fire Code. I've seen some that still align with the 2015 Fire Code. And then just to throw an extra wrinkle into it, while most states and cities kind of adopt International Fire Code standards, there is another standard called the NFPA, which is very similar to the fire codes, but obviously a slightly different standard, which could also be adopted wherever you're located. So the challenge here is just because 2024 fire codes exist doesn't necessarily mean that your building must comply with them. It really becomes a matter of your individual, either state or city, to adopt the fire codes. Because once they adopt the fire codes into their local law, at that point, those fire codes become enforceable. Right? So it's only once your city adopts the fire code into a law that a local fire department or fire marshal could come on site and say, in City X, we are mandating compliance with the 2024 code, and what you are doing here on this site does not comply with the 2024 code, in which case you can kind of get into that enforcement world of, hey, you need to get in line with the 2024 code by X date or else you can't operate. I certainly have some cases that I've worked on with clients where they actually had to move facilities from one jurisdiction to another because, quite frankly, the other jurisdiction was a little bit more relaxed on the fire code standards. It really depends on where you're located, on how the fire codes are adopted. Most places around the country have not yet adopted the 2024 standard. Now, why does that matter? What really, really matters in this case is that for the first time ever, on-site storage of lithium batteries be put into the codes. So prior to 2024, the only time you would see the words lithium batteries in a fire code is if you were operating or storing some type of what we call an ESS, an energy storage system. So think about these as almost freight container sized lithium batteries that are stored as backup energy or supplemental energy on a power grid. Prior to 2024, if I was storing lithium batteries that were not energy storage systems, there were not really any specific requirements or standards that I needed to follow. So this was both good and bad, depending on how you look at it. For some companies, they liked it because they had flexibility to say, we're going to store our batteries however we want, and no one can tell us otherwise, right? Flip side is without the standards, what we were left to back then was individual fire chiefs and fire marshals, when they did their inspections, coming on site and saying, oh, well, you have a lot of lithium batteries. I don't want you to have that many lithium batteries, because they were uncomfortable with safe storage practices. So it was entirely patchwork system where some markets had a situation where no storage standards were on the books and the fire marshals were not, current on the hazards of lithium batteries, in which case they could do whatever they wanted. And then we had other jurisdictions where fire marshals were not only aware of the hazards of lithium batteries, but in some people's interpretation, they were overly conservative and maybe overestimated the dangers of lithium batteries. And so without a standard in place, kind of a universal standard, these fire marshals would say, well, I'm only going to let you have, I don't know, whatever arbitrary limit they made up, because that's what made them feel comfortable. So enter 2024 standards. Finally, for the first time, we do have guidance in place on how you can properly and safely store lithium batteries at your site.